Oh shit, what is that? That's restreaming. Fuck! KL 8 8 AZ2 W7S. What? Hmm. I'm going to get started. Just a couple minutes. Hope the fan noise isn't too bad. My laptop's going nuts. All right, I'm going to record a Bitcoin for beginners. And what this is not meant to be is how to log onto a website and buy Bitcoin specifically. This is more meant to be if you don't know what Bitcoin is, you don't know why it would be special, you don't know how it would be used, this is the place. And how you decide to buy Bitcoin if you want to, that's entirely up to you. But I just want people to understand what Bitcoin is and why it is not some bubble that's probably going to fade away. You never know what's going to happen in the future, but Bitcoin does have some actual value. So I think that is worthy of note. I am not in cryptocurrency to make dollars. And when I buy cryptocurrencies, I'm not thinking, wow, this is going to be a great investment. I'm going to put some money in and then I'm going to get a bunch of dollars back. I'm actually buying the currency, and it's a change of a mindset. I'm buying the currency because I believe that in the future, this is going to be a good way to exchange wealth. Dollars are currently very convenient, as is any other fiat currency, but all of those currencies have problems, and that's what I'm going to talk about with Bitcoin. But if you are looking to get into Bitcoin to make a few bucks, I don't have any advice to you. It could go up and down like the stock market does. It's anyone's guess at that point. What is it? Think of Bitcoin as digital gold. This is basically what I'm going to be talking about. There's what Bitcoin is, why is it special, alternatives, where to start, and why I'm going to recommend owning it. Think of Bitcoin as digital gold, and any analogy is going to break down because there's nothing that's going to be exact. But Bitcoin is pretty close to gold or any other precious metal. And you have to, unfortunately, go back to what really gives something value, what gives money value. And for gold and all precious metals, there are a few attributes. They have to be rare, divisible, and be shiny. Not necessarily literally shiny, but it has to be something that the people using it like. And it has to be rare, so if everyone had tons of gold or tons of dollars, it wouldn't work. Everything would be very expensive. And it has to be divisible. So with gold, you can melt it down and you can make 2 coins out of one, or you can put a bunch of coins together and create one. That's important. If you want to have any sort of currency, it has to be divisible, and you have to be able to put it together easily. And then it has to be shiny. So gold and other precious metals literally don't rust, and that is what gives them value. In addition to being rare and divisible, they are shiny. So they're like a shiny object that people would want. Gold, silver, palladium, platinum, and all that. So the question becomes, what gives Bitcoin that digital shine? What makes it special? And that's really key to understand. I'm not going to do that just yet. So Bitcoin, the way it works is effectively you have a seemingly random stream of characters. And you can plug them into this one formula that everyone knows about. And you put in these random characters, and then the formula is going to either say yes or no. And if the formula says yes, congratulations, you have a Bitcoin, and as of now, it's worth 13,500. And if it says no, then you have a random stream of characters. And we know mathematically that this formula is only going to say yes to 21 million random strings of character. So there are only 21 million possibilities, and that's what makes it rare. And you've probably heard the term blockchain. So what happens if you find a random string of characters and you say, hey world, I've got these random string of characters, I now have a Bitcoin, you can plug it into your own formula. And the world says, yep, Joe's got his Bitcoin, there's his random string of characters. And if someone else comes along and says, nah, I found that same random string of characters, it's not going to work because everyone else Everyone else in the blockchain says no, Joe found it first. So there's no central ledger. It's a public ledger. And that's something that gives Bitcoin value. There's no central control. That gives it its shine. You can put a random string of characters into a formula and it'll say yes or no. Everyone knows how it works. Everyone has all the information. Everything is made public. Now, unlike the dollar, where they can print money and all of a sudden you just have new money entered in the system and no one's auditing you, and there's pretty much only one ledger, and that's at the Fed, and they keep that secret. With Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, that is not the case. Why is Bitcoin important? Because it has those three factors. It fits the criteria as a currency. It's rare, it's divisible, and it's shiny. When people value it, that gives it wealth, and then if it's divisible, that can fit the criteria of being a good medium of exchange. And like I mentioned, is a decentralized control. It's all done out on the blockchain. So if Joe says, I found this coin, everyone knows Joe found that coin. And if Joe gives that coin to someone else, everyone knows Joe gave that coin to someone else, or at least Joe's Bitcoin address. There's a hard limitation on the coins produced. That is 21 million. That is a mathematical limitation. It's kind of like there's a limited number of gold, ounces of gold that you can find. And the one thing I didn't mention with gold and Bitcoin as a similarity, you mine for gold, you search for gold, and that takes energy. And the same thing happens with Bitcoin. Computers basically look for these seemingly random strings of characters that are going to match this formula. And once they do, voila, they have a Bitcoin. So the similarities there continue. You are mining for Bitcoins and you are mining for gold. What Bitcoin is, of course, there is never actually a physical coin. There's nothing physical about it. It is only, bytes on a hard drive somewhere. Because it is the public ledger and because there are only a limited number of coins that can be found, that has a value that you can't manipulate, at least not easily. Right now, the dollar, one could say, is heavily manipulated such that if you earned $10 20 years ago and you just save that $10, it wouldn't really buy you the same amount of stuff now. And that's because the Federal Reserve can continue to add dollars into the market. And we know that by the United States deficit. Bitcoin, however, you can't do that because of that mathematical limitation. So there are 21 million coins, that's it. None more will be found. And as long as people keep valuing that shiny object, because it is rare and divisible, and it is convenient to use, well, convenient at this point to use, then it will have value. And since Bitcoin is a distributed environment, it can't control governments. And this gets a little bit into conspiracy theory, but the Federal Reserve isn't technically part of our government officially. It's sort of a strange combination between a capitalist entity that is private and a public entity. But that entity isn't responsive to the people, but also has heavy influence over the US government, as you could see when they bailed themselves out to the tune of $650 billion and the banks couldn't do anything about it. So Bitcoin, you can't get any of that. There are different types of currencies. Bitcoin is only one of them. If you are looking, right now I'm not looking to make money. I'm looking to buy a currency that I think is going to have value in the future. So when Bitcoin goes up in the dollar value, it's not that exciting to me. It's great that more people find value to it, and I like that. But in terms of being able to cash out and get dollars for it, I actually have no intention to do that. Right here, I will get to that website in a second. It's coinmarketcap.com. They show a bunch of these prices. This is somewhat accurate. It's taken this morning. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, IOTA, those are kind of the big ones. I'm not a huge fan of Ripple. That seems to be something else, but it's out there. So if you go to this website, and let's switch over there. So if you wanted to look at any of these currencies on this website, I did not switch. There we go. Let's say you wanted to look at Bitcoin. So if you click this one, and it takes you to the website. And then on the websites, and pretty much on all these currencies, they look pretty similar. And you want to go and you want to find where their exchanges exist. And you dig through all of their resources. There's exchanges for Bitcoin. So let's look at a different one. Actually, let me talk about the basic differences between some of these coins right now. Bitcoin, as you know, that's kind of the big one. The big problem with Bitcoin right now is it can handle 3 to 5 transactions a second worldwide. And that is obviously going to be a massive scaling problem because MasterCard, for example, does 10,000 transactions a second. Bitcoin with 3 to 5 is going to get bogged down, and then the fees get really heavy because there's only so many people doing it. So that's a major limitation on Bitcoin. People are doing that, working on that now. Ethereum, I like because Ethereum, unlike Bitcoin, has code that you can attach to the currency. So if you wanted to buy a ticket to an event, in the Ethereum code, you could say, I want to pay this person only if they post a ticket to a website that I can then download. And that can be put in the code of Ethereum. And it's at the early stages. That's only something that technical people would use. But in terms of a prospect of a future currency, maybe you wanted to have servers pay each other. And that would be a way to verify that the service was delivered. And I literally mean computer servers could pay another server to do something, and they're called smart contracts in Ethereum. And so this smart contract would then say, did you give me the money? Great, here's the ticket. Did I give the ticket? Great, here's your money. So that's all handled with Ethereum. So that one's different than all the rest of the cryptocurrencies that I'm aware of. So I like that one. And a lot of the other solutions, so there's Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin. What these are is these seem to be light solutions around Bitcoin because Bitcoin has that 3 to 5 transaction a second minimum. These are surrounding currencies that you would maybe pull out some Bitcoin and then just use them as your day-to-day transaction stuff. So that's the intention here. One thing is important to remember that this is, by the way, this is coinmarketcap.com. That's the website. coinmarketcap.com. One thing that's important to remember about these is none of them are necessarily mature yet. Bitcoin was relatively mature, and you can pay for things using Bitcoin. You could pay for things years ago using Bitcoin, but it's not that easy, and not all that places take it. And again, with the transactions being limited, 3 to 5 a second, there's also massive fees. So Bitcoin and all of the rest of the currencies are not there. And the reason why their values are going crazy is that they are a promise in the future to be able to do these things and be able to solve these problems. They're not quite there yet. One reason also why I like this website is it has the market cap, and that shows you not only what the price per coin is, but how big that whole market. And you can see there's 217 billion in Bitcoin right now. A couple days ago there was 350 billion, but as you can see here from this chart, it had a little happy drop. If you were looking to get in, this does appear like a good buying opportunity, but it very well could go down to 6,000, or it could turn around and go to 50,000. We literally have no idea. Get back to that PowerPoint. Why should you own Bitcoin? I believe long-term that fiat currencies, including the dollar, and especially the dollar, are in trouble. And no one really knows when that bubble is going to burst, or if it's technically a bubble, or how things are going to work out. But when the US government is spending far too much every year and shows no signs of slowing, and we are now nearing, I believe, 20 trillion in debt, that is effectively a generation of people that now has to pay back the central bank itself and large multinational corporations that have bought bonds. We have to pay back that 20 trillion in dollars. But why would people work in dollars when they can work for another currency that doesn't have the same corruption problem as fiat currencies do? And that's what makes the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin exciting, is that there's that corruption is more difficult. There is corruption in Bitcoin. I'm not going to say it's completely free. People are fighting over it. That's why there are multiple forks and everything's going on. But the idea is that the public ledger makes it more difficult for corruption, and the limitation of the number of coins that can be found, makes it their value hold or increase. Decentralized payment. This is something that I don't think people realize how important it is when you have to go through another group's system of payment. And the group I'm talking about is SegWit, and that they are the international banking group. The dollar is part of it. There is a certain amount of control that they have over you by forcing you to work in dollars, and therefore anything that they want to purchase in dollars, they can. And right now you can purchase a lot of things in dollars. So there's a certain amount of control that they have over you. If they devalue the currency, as you would have to since we keep running deficits, the dollars you work for are going to have less value in the future, naturally. When you have this decentralized payment system, that takes a lot of their control away. If I don't need any rich entity or rich person's permission or infrastructure to pay someone else all the way around a planet any amount of wealth, that is amount of control that people can have. There's also the inherent problems that if you carry cash around, try and take more than $10,000 to an airport. Well, you can take $1 billion of Bitcoin because it's really not anywhere. You can just have it digitally and transfer it across borders. So that is a massive amount of control that I would imagine some powerful people don't want to give up. I say the price is cheap now, and it is cheap even though it is at now $13,438. It is cheap if in fact Bitcoin is going to be a currency of exchange, or at least a way to store wealth in the future. And I think Bitcoin, or at least a fork of Bitcoin, will be. So I think, yes, the price is relatively cheap based on what it will be if you have a couple world fiat currencies crash. And you can't predict something like that. So you really don't know when Bitcoin is going to go up or down, or when it's all of a sudden going to have some magical effect on your life. And you have to be clear that Bitcoin really, and the rest of the cryptocurrencies, really can go to zero. And if you are trying to take power away from someone who doesn't want to give it up, and they have a lot of power, don't be surprised if they will go through pretty much any extreme to prevent that from losing that power. They could sabotage Bitcoin, or maybe they could purchase the right amount of people to make it so that they have some level of control over Bitcoin. All of that is absolutely possible, if not likely. So that there's a lot of risk in this system. And that's why I say don't put any money into it that you are not willing to lose. And so is it true that Bitcoin wastes tons of money? Right now, because it's so difficult mining, absolutely. I think it takes, and it maybe not now since Bitcoin's been spiking, but not too recently, it took more in energy to find a Bitcoin than you would get back in dollars. So there's definitely some promise of the future going on with the purchase of Bitcoins and mining. That is effectively it for getting started in Bitcoin. I view it as a currency in the future. I think that I personally like Ethereum better than Bitcoin, but I have them both. I have more Bitcoin than I do Ethereum, but only because I'm playing the safety and numbers games. I'm not doing any of the other currencies. There may be a lot of money to be made there. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for kind of like the electronic gold and silver, a way to preserve wealth, because I personally don't trust the intentions behind the people who manage global currencies, let alone their capabilities, and let alone the government's ability to spend that money appropriately. So that is what makes Bitcoin very exciting. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.